Hello kids, this is a video to explain how to set up the tracks and click on Ableton in King's house. So here we go. Firstly, you want to come over to where the laptop's actually found, which is behind the desk in this bench, and it should be here. Then you want to bring it over and set it up. Obviously, usually it'd be the drummer doing this, but it might be use the MD. So whoever you are, choose a position that suits you in terms of your instrument. But we're going to go here. So open up the laptop, and there's no password, you can get straight in. And we need to, before we do anything, plug in our tracks cable, which is this little thing. It should be somewhere on the stage. It looks like that. And you plug it in. Great. Now we are in a position to open up Ableton. Okay, a couple of things about the desktop. So first on this little number here, double click that. It's called KXE Master, and it opens up Ableton for you. Just let that load. Little thing, don't worry about that. Here it is. And that's what we're gonna look at in just a sec. Now, in the event that I have sent you a kind of pre-prepared tracks thing, then you need to navigate here, which is Ableton from Phil. So maybe I've texted you saying I've prepared the tracks and I've put it on a link. The link is in this document. So you open this up. This one is Ableton file from Phil. So this will not always be there, only if I've kind of specifically arranged that with you. And you open that up. This takes you to Dropbox link, and you simply have to, it will be in this folder. So let's imagine it's this one. And you simply download this, check the box, click download, and away you go. And you can download that and open that specific file. But for the rest of this video, I'm just going to use the master Ableton project. So if we go back to the Ableton file, what we have to just do first is a little bit of talking about troubleshooting, which I need to just kind of show you around the church as well. So when you open up Ableton, you need to go to Preferences. There's a shortcut for which is this, which is Command, comma, and you get into this drop-down box, and you need audio on the side, and you've got to select the audio output device. This is telling Ableton basically where to play audio. Now, if you've successfully plugged in this cable, then Dante virtual sound card should appear here, and that is what we use at King's house. So this step is utterly essential. If you don't do this, no sound will come out. Then you can click away from that window, and with a little bit of luck, if we press play now on something, we should get some sound. And I've put this on in the system. And you can hear that there we go. There we go, that's all working. Now, in terms of troubleshooting, you do need to know what to try if stuff's not working. So the classic one is that you haven't chosen the sound card here. So make sure you do that, and it's a different sound card at Ethiopian Church. If you have done that and it's not working, then always just restart the laptop. That's just restart it. Always do that. It needs restarting quite often. Another thing that you need to try is if we just come around here, you need to make sure that two things have happened down the back of the drum cage. Number one, you need to check that this plug is on, because if these units here aren't on, then it won't work. And the second one is that the actual Dante cable, you see it goes into this Dante port. That is the cable that we plugged into our laptop. It needs to be in that port, okay? If it's in one of these ME1 slots, it won't work. So make sure that that is correctly inserted. Then, all being well, you will get sound out the front. I'm gonna kind of take you into the session and show you briefly how to set up just some of the kind of key things that you need to know. The first thing we want to talk about is if I have sent you a file that you can import for the Sunday, you want to download it as we've talked about, so you can navigate to Ableton from Phil, this file, to the Dropbox, and then download it from here. So if that's the case, it will be in your downloads folder, and I'm just going to look through this. So imagine, okay, this is a previous one, Sunday the 5th of Feb. You'll download this. It might be a zip file, so you need to unzip it, and then what you can do cleverly is you can actually drag this project into the main project. So you don't need to open this separate file. You can expand the project with this little arrow and come to this ALS file, and then simply I can drag this into my Ableton project like this. And what you'll notice at the top now is we've got these morning and evening sets. Okay, and each of these is a little song. So let me just try playing Glorious Day, for example. Just click play on that, and some beautiful acoustic guitar is going on. Now, that won't always be the case. Sometimes you will need to, or you will want to, just create the set yourself. So that's what I'm going to just show you how to do. So you'll have a set that's been given to you, and for the purpose of today, I'm going to choose Fighting Back as my first one. So Fighting Back, this one, and what you can do is you can actually copy and paste. So copy, or I use the Apple key shortcut, and then click at the top and then paste, and you get it there. You'll notice that red tracks are ones that have red kind of scenes are one that have tracks, backing tracks with them. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, we have some of these which are kid songs, and then the pink ones are just click tracks, okay, so for something that we don't have backing tracks to. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to put Faithful One. Why not? So copy that, scroll back up to the top, and paste that in. So now I've got my, let's just say this is my 2-song set of Fighting Back and then Faithful One. Okay, so that's dragging. Now, the next thing we want to get going is the click. Click is super important. We need to make sure that the click is working. So, in Ableton, this little button here at the top left is whether the click is enabled or not. So you need to make sure that's pressed, otherwise there will be no click. And now for Faithful, remember Faithful one's a pink one, so all it's got is click. So I'm just going to get that going. Now, I've got my yellow thing lighting up. And then this little menu here tells Ableton where to send the click. And at King's House, if I click on this drop-down menu, there are some options, and they're helpfully named. So channel 7, so we've got 8 channels, and channel 7 is the one for the click. Now what you do just have to remember, and I've mentioned this in some of the previous videos, is that Ableton calls the click Q, which is of course confusing, especially as we have something else called cues, which is entirely different. We've got something called cues, which is intro, 2, 3, 4. That's what we call cues. So you just have to remember that. See on this drop down, 7 is click, so that's in the right place, and then channel 8 is for cues, what we're calling cues. So Ableton's click is, remember, Ableton calls it the cue, that is in channel 7 click. So that is correct. Now, if I put this, obviously, what you can hear is the front of house at King's House, and rightly so, the click isn't coming out of the main speakers. But if I reassign this click to, say, channels 1 and 2, which is usually percussion, you now hear it. Now hear it loud and clear. So that's working. So just make sure click is working. That is the most important thing to get going. Okay. To launch a track, you press play, and to stop it, you press spacebar. So again, Faithful One, I press the play button, or you can highlight it, press enter. So I'm going to do that now, enter, and the click's going, and you can see it top left running. It's showing a visual indication of that. And if I press spacebar, you'll notice that it stops, and the click stops as well. Okay. Next we're going to talk about muting and assignments. So for Fighting Back, we do have backing tracks for this, and you'll see these are all called little clips. They're kind of like samples, and each of these is like the backing tracks for different instruments. Now if I come down here, at the bottom I have like my kind of mixing desk for each one of these. So each individual track, like the bass, the piano, the lead guitar, it's all described at the top. They have a volume, and these yellow buttons are a mute button. So say you don't want any bass, you just click number 11, and that means that the bass track, this strip will no longer be playing. And I can actually mute all of them. I'm going to mute all of these and press play on Fighting Back, and what will happen, of course, is we won't be able to hear anything, and then I'm going to unmute them and you'll be able to hear them. So let's have some synths. So here they come. Some guitars. Some bass. There's no bass playing at the moment, but I'm going to now re-unmute all of them. Okay. What about assignments? Well, each of these tracks, each of these instruments, so percussion, BVs, guitars, synths, lead guitar, they all need to be told where to go. Okay, so let's think about percussion first. At the bottom here it says audio 2, external out, which is good, and then there's a little drop down menu and we can choose. So percussion, obviously we want to go to 1 and 2 percussion, BVs we want to go to 5 and 6 BVs, and then everything else, guitars, synths, lead guitar, lead piano, and bass, we send to music. There's also an alternative option. All of these ones, if I highlight them all like that, I can also send them all out to, instead of external out, I can send them to this thing called master. This is just another way of doing it. What this does is it sends it to an invisible master track, which is kind of like this column, and then I get to choose where the master goes. So again, all of those things I want to go to the music channel. So I just say the guitars, the synths, they're sent to the master track, and then the master itself is sent to music. So it's just another way of rerouting it. You might find that a bit complicated, in which case you can just, it's completely fine just to send all of those to music. Let's make sure that the click is going to our correct channel, that's number 7, and then our cues are going to number 8. A word on the click. Obviously there's the system click that we've talked about. Also some tracks have their own kind of audio click track, you know, basically a recording of a click. I don't really tend to use that, but it's there just in case you need it. So I can often just mute that, it doesn't really matter. That's assignments. Okay, pressing play and stop we've talked about. One extra thing with pressing play and stop is there is this stop button here. And what this is useful for is this enables the tracks to stop but the click to continue. Sometimes that's really helpful. Maybe say we get out of sync with the tracks, we're a bar out or something's gone wrong, but you still want to have the clicks going. This button is your friend. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to put our clicks out of the percussion channel again so you can hear it. I'm going to launch the tracks, press this stop button, and you'll hear that the tracks stop but the click continues. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to press that stop button now, and that is a really useful little tool. Another thing you notice me do is this little dial turns the click up and down. I have it at 3 o'clock. Sometimes it's helpful to have it to be able to fade it in if you're not sure if it's quite the right tempo, or sometimes in down moments it's nice to have the click a little lower because it doesn't need to be raging. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is altering tempo and pitch. One of the most powerful things about Ableton is that it enables you to change the tempo and the pitch of a song. So if I double click on one of these little clips, they're called, you'll see the waveform, and each of these, as I click through them, you'll see that there's this little warp button lit up. Okay, I'm not going to go into much detail about that, but what I'm about to tell you only works if these are all warped. If these have warp lit up. If they don't, then you're in real trouble. I go into a lot more detail about warping and about how this all works in my kind of Ableton little MD course. This video is just very much an overview just to get you ready for a Sunday. So what I can do is if I want to reduce the tempo of Fighting Back, or let's increase the tempo just to make it obvious. At the moment it's 84. What I can do is I can tell Ableton what tempo to play the track at through the title of this track. So I right click, I rename, and I can delete this 84 BPM and I'm going to say something mad. 130 BPM, and you'll hear the difference immediately. So here we go, and this is going to work straight away. Just turning that cue down, and you can hear that it's far faster, and it's a very, very quick way of increasing or decreasing the tempo in case the worship leader, for example, wants a slower track. The next thing is talking about pitch. Now this is slightly more complex, and I'm just going to rearrange my window. Okay, what I have to do for this is highlight all the clips. So you can click and hold Command button on your keyboard just to highlight the ones that you need. So for any clips that have pitch, so BVs, guitars, synths, lead pianos, and bass all have pitch to them. So these are going to be affected. Now, what I've forgotten to do is I need to double click on these first so I can actually see the waveforms. Now, unfortunately in Ableton, you'll see that this says E major here. If I change that, it doesn't change the pitch. Okay, so don't fall into that trap. What I have to do instead is double click on bass, you'll see the waveform, and now I can just highlight all of these different clips. So these are the ones: BVs, guitars, synths, guitars, lead piano, and bass. And now I can come down here and there's a transpose button. And again, I'm going to transpose this maybe up 7 semitones or up 6 semitones, just so it's really, really obvious. And there's this drop down menu which is also quite important. I would have this on complex, so all of them are, this is basically an option of how are they being pitch shifted. There's lots of different kind of algorithms to make this work, and complex is good, so you can just click on complex. Sometimes for vocals especially, complex pro is good, so you might want to bear that in mind if the vocals are sounding a bit weird. But we've now done this. We've increase the pitch by 6 semitones, ST, and if I press play now, you'll hear the difference. So that is now in a completely different key. I believe that is now in A sharp, also known as B flat, which is 6 semitones up from E. The last thing I would do is probably just to remind myself, I'd rename that to B flat, rename this to B flat, and also write in this little box how many semitones it's gone up. And that, my friends, is it. I hope that's helpful. Please do watch my previous videos. They give an indication of some of the more detail of how to do this. But that should be enough for getting you through a Sunday. Thanks so much.